This past year, the council spent a lot of time working with the administration in regards to looking at our water and sewer funds, which are in dire need of work. This past couple of years, the general fund, the taxpayers, have been supporting the water and sewer fund to the tune of about $200,000 per year. The bottom line is with the water and sewer fund, this chart depicts it, is that we are not laden with a lot of personnel costs. There's few people working in these water and sewer funds. However, it is the other cost drivers that are really driving this fund. In the water fund, we've had a decreasing amount of water users. Makes sense. Our community is converting to a residential community. We've had significant increases in our chemical costs, even though we continue to rebid them. The energy costs continue to climb. And just as importantly, the Department of Health and the EPA continue to bring about well-intentioned mandates, but they're mandates that come with dollar figures. And of course, there's debt service for continuing to maintain, repair, and rebuild an old system. The sewer fund, primarily driven by the Albany County Sewer District charges, because that's where most of our sewage is treated, as opposed to us doing our own treatment plant, which is out of the question, continues to climb because they too are heavily impacted by the energy market. And I know that they work their hardest to do whatever they can do. We are also a victim of our own success, as we've brought more pump stations online and we're sending more items down to be treated properly as opposed to the river. We're sending more flow, we're encouraging more costs. It's not sexy, it's not a lot of fun, but the reality is it comes at a cost and it's having an impact on these funds. We need to look this year at changing the way we charge the ratepayers on this system. The council was very supportive in making some changes over the past year. We need to go further. And also, the Common Council has made changes. They've made changes that have impacted themselves, and I applaud every single one of them. This past year, after not a lot of debate and discussion, this council voted to eliminate in 2009 the age-old practice of contributions to health care and basically using health care as a form of compensation. Now, if a council member wants health care, they pay 100% of the cost. And just as importantly, we've gotten away from the age-old practice of doing buyouts for those who had health insurance. To me, this is a great example of the elected body not only walking the walk, but talking the talk, and I applaud them for that. Recently, this past week, we had two half-day retreat sessions in which the department heads and the Common Council met together. It wasn't exotic. It was at St. John's Church. We sprung for the orange juice. That's about it, and the coffee. But it was a great opportunity for the council to really get a great handle of the department heads, and vice versa when you think about it, of how our operation is going and the concerns that lie ahead. I thank them for their commitment because they truly are engaged and are listening to the concerns that this administration is bringing forward. And it really encourages me as we prepare to deal with the sacred cows and the difficult choices. Moving on to public safety, the police department continues to do a fantastic job for the citizens of Cohoes. So a little bit of a dip in our calls this past year. I don't think we're going to be so fortunate to see that dip this year. As you know, when the economy goes sour, crime continues to increase. Fortunately, we've invested through a variety of different grant opportunities in technology, trying to give those officers the extra management tools so they continue to do their job in the best fashion possible. The fire department continues to see their amount of calls increase year after year. I'm hesitant to say that, yes, fire calls are down, thankfully. The EMS calls, which is going to continue to grow in the future, continue to climb. And they do an excellent job in that effort. As many of you know, 4 years ago, the prior council and then this council picked up that commitment. We made a commitment to build a firehouse on the island. This spring, that firehouse will be opened, probably in April or May of some time when all the finishing touches are done. And this evening, after our State of the City address, the council will be preparing a resolution that will be voted on in 2 weeks to dedicate the Island Fire Station to one of Cohoes' longtime friends. That gentleman served with the fire department for over 40 years, served as fire chief for over 20 years, and now enjoys retirement with his lovely wife for the last 20 years. This gentleman who's here with us this evening is Ray Lamora. Ray, thank you. You will not find a more likable gentleman than Ray Lamora, and he knows more about this city than I think anybody else. And Ray, I thank you for the honor to have this firehouse dedicated in your name. It was funny, I'll tell you a quick little funny story. When Ray and I met a couple months ago to discuss this, I asked him the question if he'd would mind if we dedicated the firehouse after him, and he looked at me a little bit puzzled. He said, "Don't they usually name it after people who died?" And I say, Ray, that's the beauty of dedicating it while you're here. And I'm glad you're here, and we look forward to that beautiful spring day when we dedicate that firehouse in your honor. One piece of legislation that is starting its process through the various committees of the council is the vacant building registry. 4 or 5 years ago, we looked at it. We were kind of in that growing up phase because we still had a fair amount of buildings that we knew what we were going to do with them. We had to demolish them. And the vacant buildings we thought would continue to decline, which they did. We had over 56 buildings back 4 or 5 years ago. Today we have 26. But the reason why I've requested to bring it back to the council, and I will say that the council members have also expressed their concerns, is because of the fact of what's going on in the housing market. We're not going to get out of this anytime soon. I don't care what they're saying in Washington. We're going to have to work our way through this process. But vacant buildings are a blight to our community, and it's time that we evaluate that process. The goals are simple. Stabilize it, rehabilitate it, or demolish it. Stabilization and rehabilitation are the top 2 options. Demolition will be the last option. Moving on to community and economic development. We continue to see some successes, but we also continue to see some slowness in the market. Obviously, when you have a community that has been seeing such significant residential growth and the housing and the mortgage markets tend to go south on you, you're going to see a slowdown in some of the units being built. And that's happened. Projects that were fully financed had their finance taken away. Not because of the location, not because of the type of project, but because it was happening everywhere. At the same token, and as we've always talked about, we lead with new housing to change our demographics, and in time, you'll start to see more people either opening their own businesses or demand more businesses in your downtown. And that's what we've started to see in our downtown, thanks to a variety of different programs and grant opportunities. These slides start to show you some of the interiors and exteriors of some of these buildings. Some of these second floor residential quarters are absolutely gorgeous, and I can see why people are starting to rent these up, and it's exciting to see this in many aspects. This is a slide of 130 Remsen Street where a couple new businesses moved in this past year, and as Ed Tremblay pointed out to me, we are starting to see year by year